Good evening everyone. Can anyone please confirm whether am I audible or not? Hello? Can anyone please confirm whether am I audible or not? Hello? Can anyone please confirm whether am I audible or not?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
So good evening everyone. I am Priya Tapwal doing PhD under the supervision of Professor Sudeep Mishra at IIT Kharagpur in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Today we will discuss the topic of week 7 and after that we will discuss the assignment question of week 7. So in the week 7 we have completed the topic that is your remote data logging. Before that we have discussed the basics of your Raspberry Pi, that how your Raspberry Pi can be used to connect to your sensors and how Raspberry Pi is going to control your sensors and actuators. Now once you receive data from your sensor, you need to store that data or you need to log that data for future use. For example, if you want to do some analytics on that data, if you want to predict something from that particular data, then you need to maintain some logs of that data. So in order to do so, today we are going to study that how we are going to store that particular data which we have sensed by using sensors into your server. So first of all, Internet of Things. As we know that, or we have already covered that Internet of Things are the devices or the network of devices which are connected together in order to make your environment interactive, so that all the devices which are present in your environment can interact with each other and exchange data with each other. Further, remote data logging. So in case of your remote data logging, it means to log the data which you have received from your sensor. Log means to store that data or maintain a proper sheet which contain the data which you have collected through your sensor. So remote data logging means collect the data from the devices which are present in your network. Further, you need to store that particular data which you have collected from various sensors. So in order to do that, you have to send the data to the server or the remote machine where you want to store that data. Then after that, the data which is stored at the particular server, you need to control that data or you need to manage that data remotely. So your remote data logging means collecting the data from the sensors, after that sending the data to the server or the remote machine, and then controlling that amount of data remotely. Now in order to discuss this remote data logging, we have considered a system scenario that is consisting of a temperature and humidity sensor which is connected to your Raspberry Pi. In that particular scenario, we are going to read the data from your sensor, that is your DHT sensor, and send that data to the server and further save the data on that server. So what are the requirements, what are the hardware and what are the requirements that we need in order to make that particular scenario? So the requirements are DHT sensor, as I have already mentioned. After that, your resistor, jumper wire in order to make the connection, and Raspberry Pi, which is used for controlling your sensor. Yeah. Now sensor Raspberry Pi interface. Now you have to connect your sensor to your Raspberry Pi, right? Here we are using DHT sensor. Can anyone please tell me that how many pins are there in DHT sensor? Anyone? We have completed this topic. How many? Can you please repeat what you said? Anyone? How many pins are there in your DHT sensor? No? Okay. Your DHT sensor consists of 4 pins. So the pin 1, which is your leftmost pin, is the power pin through which you are going to get voltage or power. Second pin is the pin which is input pin, with the help of which you are getting input. And the third pin is your the third pin will describe the null value, and fourth pin is used to ground your sensor. Now since I have said that your first pin is for your power, so you will connect your first pin of DHT sensor to the voltage pin of your Raspberry Pi. So it can be either 3.3 voltage, and in your Raspberry Pi 5 voltage option is also there, so you can use that pin also. Further, you have to connect the second pin of your DHT sensor to any input pin of your Raspberry Pi. So for example, here in this case we have used pin 11. Now third pin is for null value, so we can ignore that, we don't have to make any connection. And the fourth pin is for grounding. So fourth pin of DHT sensor should be connected to the ground pin of your Raspberry Pi. Now you have to read data from your sensor, that is your DHT sensor. So for that you need to import some library, right? So the name of the library which help in collecting the data from the sensor is Adafruit. So Adafruit provides a library to work with DHT sensor. This is for your DHT sensor only. So you have to install that particular library in your Raspberry Pi, and after that you can make the use of functions which are present in that particular library in order to read the data from your sensor. For example, in case of your Adafruit, you can use this function, that is Adafruit_DHT.read_retry in order to read the data from your sensor. So data will be your temperature data as well as your humidity data. So this is the code, you can run this code, and this is the output. So here you can see that the temperature value is 26.1 degrees Celsius, however your humidity is 65.9%, right? After that we have collected the data from the sensor. Now you need to send this data to the server, right? So in order to send the data to the server, one way is to use the socket programming. This thing we have already covered. So in case of your socket programming, you have to create two-way communication between your nodes, that is your client node as well as your server node. So you have to create two codes, one for your client and other for your server, and after that you have to make the connection between your client and server, and then you can send the data to your server. Second option is you can make the use of the network protocols which are already there. So in that case also you have to create server and client, you have to establish the connection, and then you have to send the data from your client to the server. So this is the way of creating a socket. This thing I have already completed. That in socket programming, in order to establish the connection, first of all you have to create a socket. So here is the syntax that how to create a socket. So this is a syntax you can follow. In the parameters socket, you have to mention the socket family. That is the protocol that you are using. For example, your IP, your this AF Unix and or this AF INET is used to describe the protocol which you are using. Then socket type. This thing will describe the transmission protocol that you are using, whether you are sending your data in the form of by using your TCP protocol or your UDP protocol. So if it is if you are using your TCP protocol, then you have to use your socket type as your sock_stream, and if you are using UDP, then you have to use sock_dgram, and the protocol is set default as 0. Now this is the we have completed that how to send data to your server. We have collected the data from your sensor using your Adafruit library. We have sent your data to your server for storing using your socket programming. Now what after that? You have stored the data, but after that you need to understand the data which you have stored. It should be in your in human readable form. So, or for that thing you need to do the splitting. For example, here I'll show you. If we are not printing in your server, only the values 26.1, 65.9 is stored. So by seeing that values, you are not going to get whether the values are for temperature sensor or whether the values are for humidity sensor. So first of all, you have to split the values into different, that this value is for temperature and the another value is for humidity, and after that you have to plot the graphs for that particular sensor value in order to visualize that what exactly the sensor values are and how your sensor values are varying. So for that you need to do data splitting, and after that you have to plot the data. This is for making the data in the understandable form, so the end user can understand the data of your sensors, that what exactly, how exactly your sensor value are changing. So in order to do that, you again have to create an interface between your Raspberry Pi and your sensor. So this will be similar. You have to connect your Raspberry Pi to your sensor, as I have already mentioned. You have to follow same steps. After that you have to use Adafruit library in order to collect the data from your sensor, then send the data to your server, and after that once the data is stored at the server, you need to process that data. So for processing, data splitting or filtering you can say, or data plotting is used. Now what is data splitting? So data splitting means, see, there are various values stored in your server. So in order to categorize the data, for example, I have stored my values like 26 hash 27. Now this 26 and 27 are different values, and I am separating two different values by using hash. So your separating value can be anything. It can be comma, it can be hash, it can be any symbol you can use. For example, here we are using that if we are using comma in order to separate the value, then you have to write like this. For example, your message should be string h plus your comma, then string t, and in order to split the value you can use the function split. For example, here is your data. Data is your Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and all the data is separated by your comma. So now you need to separate all the data. It means that you have to create, this is only one string. Now you have to create three different strings because all the three values are different. So you have to mention data dot split comma. It means that wherever you are using comma in your string, you have your string will get parted into two different parts. For example, here is comma, so Sunday will become one string, after that Monday will become, and Tuesday will become the third string. Now after splitting, we are getting different values. In case of your DHT sensor, we have recognized that before comma it is your temperature sensor value, and after comma it is your humidity value. Once it is done, you have to plot the data. So in order to plot the data, there is one library in your Python, that is your matplotlib, which is used to plot the graphs in 2 dimensions. So in order to plot the graph, there is one function called plot, which is present in your matplot library, which will plot the data. So in the plot function, you have to mention the value of x and y, and this will plot the value on your graph. And after that, if you want to put labels on your x-axis and y-axis, then you can use x label and y label functions. After that, if you want to put title, then you can use function title. Inside the title, I have written simple plot, then you will get here, it is not mentioned here, but if you use this function title, then here you will got a title of this graph, which is your simple plot. Now this is the way to import this matplotlib. Once you import this library, you have to plot. For example, you want to plot this 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on the both side, your x-axis are also 1, 2, 3, 4, and your y-axis are also 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't want both x-axis and y-axis as similar, then you can create an array as x and y, and in those arrays you can put the values of x and y, and here you can simply use the plot function by putting x comma y. And yeah, myplot.show is used to create this string where you will get your plot. So this is the code in order to plot this figure. By default, the values are taken for y-axis and values for x-axis are generated automatically starting for 0. So this is for this plot. Now what are the different functions that we can use in for plotting your data? So first one is figure. So figure function is used to create a new figure. Grid function enables or disable grid in the plot. So for example, if you are using grid function in this, then you will get some grid lines here. Okay, so this plot will be divided into grids. You will get some rows and columns, and over that you will get your graph. After that, iron will turn on your interactive mode. Then subplots is used to add subplots in your figure. So there will be one figure, and in that particular figure you will get different subplots. Close is used to close the current figure window, and scatter is used to make the scatter plot of the given points which you have given. Now the second topic which we are going to cover is your software defined networking. So this is new topic, and this is the technology which is used in your Internet of Things. So basically consider this scenario, the first figure. So this is the overview of current conventional network. For example, here is your user 1 and here is your user 2. You want to send data from user 1 to user 2. So your data will follow any path and go to your user 2. So depending upon the protocol which you are using, the path is followed. For example, if you are following OSPF protocol, that is your open shortest path first protocol, in order to send the data, then assume that this is the shortest path between your user and user 1 and user 2. So in order to send data from your user 1 to user 2, the path followed is this, which is shown by your red line. Now consider the scenario that any switch which is in between has been attacked by any attacker or is get corrupted. Then what will happen? Then you need to follow some other path, right? We need to do rerouting of your network. But since your network is decentralized, there are different switches, it will take large amount of time in order to decide or in order to find the new path, right? Now what are the problems which are there in your current network? So in case of your current network, the switches which are present in between are of vendor specific architecture. For example, your hardware, operating system and application layer of all the switches are vendor specific and are different. For example, this switch belongs to particular vendor which is following some certain set of rules, other switch is following some other set of rules. So in case if a particular switch get corrupted, then and you need to do rerouting, you have to make changes in all the switches which are there in the network. So it will become difficult to make changes in all the switches, right? Because we need to write program for all the switches, so it will take time to write 1000-line program for all the switches which are present in the network. So what will be the solution in order to solve this problem? So in order to solve this problem, the solution is to separate your hardware part as well as your operating system part. So after that, once it is done, your operating system will become centralized. So if some corruption, if your hardware get faulty, if your switch will get faulty, then you just need to make changes in one particular operating system, because operating system for all the switches are same. So in that particular operating system you need to make changes. You don't need to make changes in all the switches which are present in your network. So this is the concept which is followed by your software defined networking. So in case of your software defined networking, you are separating your hardware from your operating system. Basically your operating system will become centralized and your hardware for it means that switches are different. So with the help of this centralized operating system, you are going to control all the hardware which are present in the network. Now the origin of your software defined networking, that how your software defined networking come into picture, what exactly has happened. So in 2006 at Stanford University, a team proposes a clean state security architecture, that is saying in order to control the security policy in a centralized manner instead of doing at the edges. So basically, first of all, this centralized architecture is proposed for achieving security. However, in 2008, the idea of your software defined networking is originated from OpenFlow project, that is published in your ACM SIGCOMM 2008. This is conference. So this project, your OpenFlow get published in this paper, so you can check what exactly they have proposed. After that, in 2009, Stanford publishes OpenFlow version 1. So basically this protocol, the various version of these protocols are published after that. In 2009, then a network is found. After that, Open Networking Foundation is found, and the first Open Networking Summit is held in October 2011. Now, what are the basic concepts of your software defined networking? So in case of your software defined networking, separate control logic from the hardware switches. So basically the controller will become separate from your hardware switches. So you can see this will become your controller and these are your hardware switches. So hardware switches will become separate from your controller. Now define the control logic in a centralized manner. So in the control logic which is going to control your whole network is mentioned in your controller, that is your operating system, which is in your centralized manner, not in distributed manner. So which will control the entire network including your individual switches. Further, the communication between application control and data planes are done through APIs. So there are various APIs which are used in order to make the communication possible between your hardware, operating system and your application. So we will discuss about the APIs later. After that, what are the different components or attributes of your SDN? So hardware switches, after that your controller, after that your application, then flow rules and your APIs. So hardware switches, I think you must know, these are the hardware switches which are present at the lower layer here. After that, this is your controller which is going to control all the hardware switches and the applications which are requesting for data or which are making any changes. So this will be your application. Now for the interaction of these three components, we need some APIs. So fourth component is your APIs. And the last component, that is your flow control. Flow rules are the rules which mention that how the flow will take place, how your data will flow through your network. Now, what is the current status of SDN? So, various companies such as Google have started to implement SDN at their data center networks. It is required to change the current network with SDN in a phased manner, because if you suddenly change your network, then it will be costly, right? So it will be better to change the current scenario network in a phased manner. So operational cost and delay cost due to link failure can be significantly minimized. This I have already told, because we don't need to write code on different switches. We just need to make changes over a particular centralized controller. We don't need to make changes on all the switches. So therefore, due to link failure, the cost as well as delay both will get minimized. Now, what are the challenges which we face during the implementation of your software defined networking? So first one is your rule placement, that where exactly you will place these flow rules which will define the flow your data will take, that how to place your rules. And second one is your controller placement. It means that at what position you are going to place your controller. See, because now there is only one controller which is going to handle different hardware devices. So the placement of controller is responsible for the congestion control also, because if the controller is not placed at an appropriate position, then it is not going to handle the amount of data which is produced by your end user. So your controller should be placed in such a manner that it should be able to handle all the data which is created by your end user. So this is one particular issue, that how to decide where to place your controller. Now rule placement. So in computer networks, I guess you must know about routing table, right? So routing table will decide that which path your data will follow in order to reach at your destination. Similar concept is used in your SDN, that is your software defined networking, but instead of your routing table you are going to use the term flow table, which will mention that which is the particular path that is followed by your data in order to reach from your center to your destination node. So in case of your flow rule, every entry in your flow table, flow rules are mentioned, and every entry will specify that what is the MAC address of source, destination IP address of source, destination then the priority of the particular data, source port, destination port, all these things are mentioned in your flow rule. Now, what are the challenges that we face in placing your rules in your flow table? We need to store these flow tables somewhere, right? So in order to store your flow tables, a particular type of memory, that is your TCAM, ternary content addressable memory, is used. Why this is used? Because it is fast processing memory. So in order to access the rule in real time, TCAM is used. But the size of TCAM is limited, as it and also it is expensive. So we need to decide that which rule we need to store in TCAM and which rule we need to replace from your TCAM or delete from your TCAM. So this is the one challenge, that which rule we need to exactly store in your TCAM. Now the second challenge is, on receiving a request for which no rule is present in the switch sends packet in message to the controller. The controller decides a suitable flow rule for the request. The flow rule is inserted at the switch. Typically, it will take 3 to 5 millisecond delay is involved in the new rule placement. So yeah. So we also need to decide whether, see, if some new thing happen in your network, you need to store that particular thing in your TCAM. So you need to decide whether to store that particular flow rule in your TCAM or not. First problem is this. Second problem is, if you want to place some new rule, you need to replace with older one. Then which particular rule you are going to delete, and in place of that you are going to place your new rule. So these are the two different challenges which we face during your rule placement. This is similar to the concept which we used in your caching. In case of caching also, we need to decide that which data we need to store at the cache memory and which data we need to store at your main memory. So this concept is exactly same which is used in your cache memory. Yeah, rule placement, that this thing I have already mentioned, that how to define the rules at the switches while considering the available TCAM, and how to define the rules so that less number of packet in message are to be sent to the controller. Because see, if a particular rule is not present in your TCAM memory, then you have to send packet in messages. So the placement of rules should be like that, so that your packet and messages should be minimum. Now open flow protocol. So this is the protocol which will decide that how to place your rules in your TCAM memory. So this is the only protocol which is available for rule placement. It has different versions, that is your 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. to have different number of match fields. So basically this is the basic open flow protocol, and based on the version, the match field, which are like your IP addresses, IP source address, IP destination address, source port, destination port, these fields may change depending upon the version that which you are using. So what are the different match fields that are present in your open flow protocol? It can be your source IP, destination IP, source port, priority. It can be your MAC address of destination as well as your source. It can be your ingress port. It can be your instruction. So all the match fields will depend upon the version which you are using. Now the next concept is that how much time a flow rule is to be kept at a particular switch. So the first time out is your hard timeout. So hard timeout will mention that after what amount of time your switch need to be reset. So in case of your hard timeout, whenever your hard timeout will take place, all the rules which are present in the controller in the flow table will get deleted. However, in case of your soft timeout, if no flow is received associated with a rule, see, if you have stored a rule in the flow table, but by using that rule no flow is taking place in your network, it means that flow or that rule is not valid, or that rule we are not using for large amount of time. So we need to delete that particular rule, and we, instead of that particular rule, we need to store some other rule which is used at a very frequent interval of time, right? So that particular amount of time after which we delete the rule which is not used at very frequently, that timeout is called your soft timeout. This is used to empty the rule space by deleting an unused rule. So SDN is not an open flow. So basically two concepts were proposed. One is your SDN and second one is your open flow. So both the concepts are different. SDN is your technology and open flow is the protocol which is used by your SDN, right? So in case of your SDN, that how different nodes will communicate, you are going to use your open flow protocol, which will decide the flow rules that discover or that further discover the route which is taken by your data in order to reach to your destination. We may have other protocols for this purpose. However, open flow is the only protocol which is present till today. So instead of open flow, if someone proposes some new protocol, then that protocol can also be used in SDN. But till now, it is the only protocol which is available. So basically, SDN is technology, and open flow is the protocol which is used by that particular technology. Now, open flow switch software. What are the different software? So Indigo, Link, Pento, Auth13, Soft Switch, Open V Switch. These are the different open flow switch software which are available in the market. Now the APIs. I have already mentioned that in order to communicate in order to make the communication possible between your hardware switch, your controller and your application, different APIs are used. Okay, I'll show you the diagram once again. So this is the diagram. So in order to make the communication possible between this hardware switch and your controller, some API is required here. API is interface, right? So some interface is required here which will make the communication possible between these two. And similarly, some API is required here also between your application and operating system. So on the basis of their location, we are going to name those API. For example, the API which is present between your controller and hardware, that is your southbound API, and the API which is present between your application and controller, that is your northbound API. Yeah. So southbound API is used to communicate between your controller layer and your infrastructure layer, that is your hardware switch. Open flow protocol is used in this API. Further, your northbound API. This is used to communicate between your controller layer and your application layer. Various standard APIs are used in your northbound API. So apart from these southbound API and your northbound API, there is one more type of API, that is your east-west bound API. So your east-west bound API is used to communicate among multiple controllers which are there in your control layer. So in your control layer, if more than one controller is present, we also need these controllers to interact with each other, so that we can get a view that these controllers are not separate, or these controllers are not distributed. So to get that particular view, these controllers need to communicate with each other. So for their communication, the API which is available is east-west bound API. Now the next concept is your controller placement. The one problem was your rule placement, which we have already discussed, and the second problem is your controller placement. So controller placement will decide that where exactly you need to place your controller. So controller defines the flow rule according to the application specific requirement. The controller must be able to handle all the incoming requests from the switches. So it should be placed in such a way that the time to handle those requests is negligible or very less. If you are not placing your controller in such a manner, then it will result in delay. So this is the problem, that how to place the controller. The rule should be placed without incurring much delay. Typically a controller can handle 200 requests in a second. The controller are logically connected to switch in one hop distance. See here, you can see that these are the hardware switches and this is the controller. So assuming logically, it is assumed that the controller is present at only one hop distance from your hardware switch, but in your real network it may not be possible. So there may be multiple hops present between your controller and your hardware switch. So physically they are connected to switch in a multi-hop distance. So if we have a very small number of controller for a large network, the network might be congested with control packets. Now these are the different topologies which are used in your SDN, that how your switch is going to connect with your controller. So first one is your flat architecture. So in case of your flat architecture, your hardware, there is one-to-one connection between your controller and your switch, hardware switch. So for each switch there is one controller and the communication will take place between each controller and your hardware switch. However, in case of your mesh architecture, there may be any number of controllers present in the network, and further these switches are connected to this controller in any form, or they can form any topology in order to get connected to these controllers. Further, the third type is your tree architecture. In case of your tree architecture, a set of hardware switches is connected to a controller, and further a set of controllers are again connected to a main controller, which is going to control the sub-controller which are present in the, for example here you can see in the second layer. So this controller is going to control your these controller, and further this controller are going to control your hardware switches. And in case of your ring architecture, there are different controllers present in your network, and your switch is going to make connection in, with any of the controller which are present in the form of ring in the network. Now the control mechanism. So the control mechanism is distributed. The controller control decision can be taken in a, so it can be distributed as well as your centralized. So if the control decision is taken in a distributed manner, then it is distributed. However, if the control decision is taken in centralized manner, then it is your centralized. Now the backup controller. So consider a scenario when a controller which your set of switches are using go down. Then what will happen? What is going to control your switches? So in that case we need a backup controller, which is just the replica of the controller which is present in your network, and that backup controller is going to control your hardware switches. So this is required for the uninterrupted operation of your network. Now security using SDN. So SDN is also responsible for enhancing security. Your firewall, proxy, HTTP, intrusion detection system, all these can be used in your SDN. Now what are the benefits of integrating SDN in IoT? So for intelligent routing decision, in IoT, SDN will be useful. For the simplification of information collection, analysis and decision making, your SDN will be useful. Third one is visibility of network resources, that is the network management is simplified based on the user, device and application specific requirement. And the last one is intelligent traffic pattern analysis and coordinated decisions. Now, what are the challenges which we face during integrating your SDN technology with your Internet of Things? So, the first one is real-time programming of sensor nodes will become difficult. Second is vendor-specific architecture. Your sensors will have, your IoT will have vendor-specific architecture. So, in order to make SDN or your switches interoperable with your IoT, it will be difficult. Third one is your resource constraint. So the devices in your IoT network are resource constrained, and since they are resource constrained, they also have limited memory. So you cannot insert too many programs, control programs in these resource constrained devices. Now the opportunities of integrating SDN in IoT. So what in future, what are the various opportunities of integrating SDN in IoT? So first one is, can we program the sensor node in real time? So with the help of SDN, can we program the sensor node in real time? So this is the question, research question which is available, on which one can work, that whether we can program the sensor nodes in real time. Second one is, can we change the forwarding path in a real time? See, in case of SDN also, we are not changing the path in real time. Your controller, on the basis of your network condition, is making the changes or is deciding the path, but that is not in real time. So open question of research is, so can we do or change the forwarding path in real time? Third one is, can we integrate different sensor nodes in wireless sensor network using your SDN? So these are the research questions which are available. So these are the opportunities future on which we can work in future. Now after discussing the topics, we will discuss the questions of your week 7. So first question is, in socket programming, the parameter AF_INET stands for. Options are Unix protocol, second option is Internet protocol, third option is file sharing, fourth one is time slicing. Anyone? This thing we have covered when we covered your socket programming topic. So AF_INET stands for, today even I have mentioned this in one line. Anyone? No? Okay. So, yeah. Speak loudly. Yeah, Internet protocol. So whenever you are creating socket, you have to mention the protocol. First parameter is your where you have to mention the protocol which you are using for making your communication. So there, if it is written as AF_INET, then this specify that you are using your Internet protocol. Second question is, during remote server accessed by a Raspberry Pi, where the Raspberry Pi act as a client, the client needs the following: only IP address of a server, only port number, both server IP address and port number, client's IP address. So this is also related to your socket programming. Whenever you
C option.
C option, right? You need both your port number as well as your server IP address in order to make connection between your client and your server. Now question number 3 is, if you are using Raspberry Pi to connect IoT sensors, for example your DHT temperature sensor, which of the following Python library lets you configure the sensor and read the data from them? Option 1 is Adafruit.
Adafruit.
Right, Adafruit. Matplotlib is used to plot the graphs. NumPy is used for your using your numerical mathematical functions, and Socket is used for creating your socket program, or making use of your socket programming. Now fourth question is, you can store and log the different sensor data by for processing in text files, but not comma separated value files. It means that you can store data in your text file, not in CSV files. Is it true or false?
False.
It is true. So the sensor data can be logged in any format as is suitable and appropriate, as long as the data is not corrupted. I think it is false. I have written this wrong. Yeah. So you can store data in any format, in text file as well as in your CSV files. If you are storing your data in your CSV files, then in that case you have to use your split function in order to separate that data, right? Now fifth question is, consider the following Python script using split function. What will be the correct print output? See these, for example, DAT consists of your apple, guava, hash banana, and you are splitting this string by using your hash symbol. Now print
Option D.
Option D, right?
D.
Because separator here is your hash, so whenever hash will occur, your processor is going to divide that particular string at that point. So here it is going to divide. So option D is correct. Now question number 6. In SDN, the central controller defines all the path, flow and behavior of network in a centralized manner. True or false?
True.
Right, it's true. Question number 7. OpenFlow is a protocol that is used for traditional distributed OSPF based networking.
True.
Is it true? What is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
relation between your OpenFlow and OSPF? There is no relation between your OSPF and your OpenFlow. See, I'll show you the figures here. Yeah, here I have shown that this is the current network, and if we are following your OSPF protocol, then this is the path followed by your data. However, if your switch will get corrupted, then we have to follow some new path, right? So OSPF is a routing protocol which is used in your conventional networks. It has nothing to do with your SDN. It's just an example which is showing that what is the problem with your conventional network. And OpenFlow is the protocol which is used in your SDN. Okay. So OpenFlow is the most popular protocol that implements the concept of your SDN, as it is the only protocol which is used in SDN, where SDN is a theoretical framework and is different from the traditional network. And in your traditional networks, you are using various protocols, routing protocols like your RIP, your OSPF, all those things. So those your conventional protocols has nothing to do with your OpenFlow. OpenFlow is the protocol which is used in SDN, and this OSPF is used in your conventional network in order to route the data. Now question number 8. In SDN, blank tables in switches describe the rules that the switch must follow for packet forwarding and are
Option D.
Option D, right, flow tables. Question number 9. In a network architecture, one logical hop between two nodes can actually be composed of multiple physical hops in a physical network. True or false? It means that in logical form,
True.
yeah, true. See, in case of in logical form, there should be one hop between your controller and your physical switch, that is your hardware switch. But in actual network, it can be any number of hops. Now question number 10. What among the following is a challenge while designing SDN architecture? Control placement only, both rule and control placement, rule placement only, and switch placement.
Option B.
Option B, right. Both rule and control placement. Yeah. Question number 11. Packet in type of messages are associated with which of the following directional API? Eastbound API, southbound API, westbound API, northbound API. Okay, what is packet in type of messages? Okay, so packet
Switchboard.
what?
Southbound.
Southbound, right. Because packet in messages are used whenever your flow rule is not present in your TCAM memory, right? So in order to send messages from your switch to your controller, we use packet in messages. So the interaction between your switch and your controller take place with the help of your southbound API. So your packet in messages are related to your southbound API. Now question number 12. For a SDN switch flow rule, the soft timeout is set to 2 minutes and hard timeout is set to 6 minutes. After 6 minutes and 10 seconds since the flow rule was initiated, what will be the status of flow be in the switch? Option A is the flow will be surely deleted. The flow will be deleted if it received no packets for 4 minutes. The flow will remain intact. The flow will remain intact with random probability. Yeah. Anyone? See here, hard the timeout is 6 minutes and soft timeout is 2 minutes. After 6 minutes 10 seconds, so this is the time period. Flow, what will be your flow rules? Are they present in your flow table or not?
No, ma'am.
No, because a hard timeout will going to reset your flow table, right? So after 6 minutes, since your hard timeout is 6 minutes, so after your 6 minutes 10 seconds, your flow table will be reset. So all the flow rules which are initially present in your flow table will be surely deleted from your flow table. Now question number 13. It is a good idea to keep a backup controller in SDN architecture along with the main controller. True or false?
True.
Yeah, because if your main controller will go down, then your backup controller is going to handle all the traffic which your controller is getting from your switches. Question number 14 is software defined IoT solve the challenge of blank that is relevant in traditional IoT networks. Option A is uniformity, option B is deployment, option C is homogeneity, and option D is heterogeneity.
Deployment.
Deployment, it's heterogeneity. So in case of your software defined IoT, it can be used to solve the heterogeneity challenges in your traditional IoT networks. Question number 15 is sensor open flow, soft WSN and SDN wise are the examples of. Options are traditional routing protocol, various SDN protocol for wired LAN, various implementation of the concept of software defined IoT and traditional IoT protocol example.
Ma'am, C.
C.
C or
Yeah, it's C. So the given names all are the example of various implementation of your different concepts of your software defined IoT by various research groups all across the world. So these are the protocols which are proposed by different researchers in your SDN. Okay, so that's it for today. So it's already 7:03. Okay, okay, then I'm closing today's session. Any question or any topic you want me to cover in next class? No?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah?
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yeah?
Ma'am, how we can separate the different hardware from the different OS?
See, the
I
controller,
said,
yeah, because in the decision part is not, if you are not taking any decision at your hardware thing, then automatically you are, that is just an example which is showing that operating system get separated from your hardware. However, in case of your SDN, your controller gets separated from your hardware, not exactly operating system. That is just a figure which is showing that. See, because controller are just taking decision that what exactly we need to do, right? So that can be centralized only.
ma'am, how we can connect the different hardware to controller in practical level, ma'am? How we can do this practically?
Okay, so you can use any communication protocol with the help of which your devices can communicate with your controller. This is similar to the communication which take place between your IoT devices or which take place between your different devices. So your controller is also a device, it is nothing else, and your switches, that is your hardware switches, are also device. So communication can take place between two devices, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Any topic that you want me to cover in the next class? No?
Sensor cloud.
Sensor cloud. This is of week 7. No, in week 7 it was not there. So, did sir cover in lectures? Yes or no?
Ma'am.
Okay, I'll give you some basic idea of sensor cloud in the next class. Okay. Okay then.